All right, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in, both on YouTube and on Instagram. I really appreciate you guys tuning into today's live stream. Today, we're not actually going to be creating anything during the live stream, and instead, we're going to be talking a bit about stress, breakdowns, burnout, and things like that. Something that a lot of people are probably going through during this whole pandemic, and the fact that people are losing their jobs and things like that. So, what happened to me last week is I actually experienced all three of the, well, not all three. I experienced stress, burnout, and I experienced a breakdown. And it got me thinking that maybe that was something that would be good for us to talk about on one of these live streams. And so that's the reason why that's today's topic, is because of the fact that, I experience it, all of you guys have probably experienced it, and things like that. And it's something that's good to talk about generally. To give you guys a little bit of an idea of why I got stressed out, why I had a bit of a breakdown last week, the last 3 or 4 weeks now, I've pretty much been working almost every day. I've been working every day and sometimes each night. Let me see if I can fix this a little bit on the Instagram. And so because of the fact that I was working so hard, that I was pushing myself, I kind of was not allowing myself to take a break. And it really made things pretty difficult for myself. And eventually everything got, bubbled up. And last week I ended up working on every single project that I am currently working on at once, pretty much. And Thursday night I ended up finally snapping. And it made me realize, okay, I need to actually take a moment. I need to take a moment for myself, and I need to focus on me. It's also one of the reasons why I didn't do any live streams last week, was because of the fact that I decided to take a break, or more on the fact that I was doing a lot of client work, but then at the end of the week it was because I needed a break. So what I ended up doing was I took both Friday, Saturday, or not both, but all three, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, in order to take a break for myself and to focus on me. Even ended up doing retail therapy, where I bought a brand new monitor for the studio. I upgraded my MacBook Pro to the new 16-inch MacBook Pro, and all of those things should be arriving in the next 10 days or so. So, not necessarily the best thing to do, but you know what? It was, it's up time I upgrade some of the pieces of my studio, and those were definitely parts that I needed to do that. So, one thing that I always get, Brian Burkett, where's the facepalm emoji? Brian Burkett here is like my conscience when it comes to buying stuff. He always gets on to me, especially when I'm buying new Apple products. But the good news is I saved some money on everything. I'm trading stuff in, and I'm gonna be selling my iMac. So in reality, yeah, it cost me a little bit of money, but not that bad. But one thing that I'm always asked, I get this in AMAs, I get this on live streams, is, do I ever get stressed out? How do I deal with the stress? And, well, it's clear with today's live stream that, yes, I get very stressed out. There's many times where I find myself, sometimes like, okay, I've got all this stuff going on. I don't know when the next project's coming in. I don't know, am I going to have enough money for the next month and things like that. And those things can be very, very stressful. They can be extremely stressful to anybody, not just me, but to anybody. And it's how we go about dealing with those stresses that leads to whether or not we will be successful, or we will do the things that we want to do, or we will get past these roadblocks that pop up. So for instance, for me, one of my favorite things to do whenever I'm stressed out is I actually go and I write an entry in my journal here. I call it morning papers. Tim Ferriss calls his morning papers, and so that's why I named this morning papers. But this is where I go through and I write out what's going on in my head, any of my stresses, any of the things that I'm dealing with, both positive, negative, mostly negative. There's actually a lot more negative in this book than there is positive, and that's because this is how I deal with those things. And the good thing is that I think I'm only at page 36, and I started this at the beginning of the year. So I'm only on 36, so I've only had to write in here 36 times in the last year. But that's one of my favorite things to cope with stuff like this. But then at the same time, meditation, going on walks and things like that. Basically, the way that I go through and deal with my stresses is the same way that I go about dealing with designer block or creative block or things like that. Hello, Mahmood from YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, when I had my little breakdown last week, and when I needed that time to just de-stress and decompress, it was something that, at the time I was like, I don't want to just stop. I don't want to not do work, but it was something that I needed. And so it's something that I kind of have to come to terms with. We have to know, okay, we can't always be pushing ourselves. We can't always be, trying to do everything all at once. It's not the best thing to do. It's not the smartest thing to do. And it can quickly lead to bad stuff and everything. So what ended up happening was I have a few projects on my plate. I spent all day on Tuesday working on one, shipping it, then working on another project. The next day I had my retainer project, but we weren't able to start on it on time, and I ended up having to work till pretty much midnight on it. The following day I had to do some tweaks to that project on top of working on 2 other projects. So what ended up happening was, in the course of 3 days, I probably worked 40 to 50 hours in total, with barely any breaks. It's one of the reasons why I didn't go live on Behance. It's also the reason why I didn't go live on Friday here on YouTube, was because of just how stressed out I was and how I didn't know the best way of coping with it besides taking a break. And so Thursday night, after I got all that work done, I ended up having a bit of a breakdown where, I basically just I'll admit, I cried. I let out all of my stresses. I, talked to my wife. She comforted me. She helped me out. And by the way, I'm a grown man. I cry. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with showing emotion. There's nothing wrong with, setting aside these machismo or these manly assertions that we can never cry, or we can never get upset, or we can never show emotion, and everything like that. I'm an emotional guy. I've always shown emotion, and that's just who I am. I mean, even now, you can hear my voice just talking about all this stuff. I get a little, choked up here and there, and that's perfectly fine. And so what I ended up doing was, for about, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour is when I had my little breakdown. We went to sleep, got up the next morning. I was still feeling a little out of it, a little bummed, a little stressed. And so I just took the day. I didn't worry about things. I didn't focus on things. And even after that first day, I was feeling a bit better. I wasn't really answering people on social media. I was just, sitting on the couch, watching, Harry Potter movies with my wife, watching other streaming stuff. And that helped out a lot for me. We actually have a question that came in from Benny Carney here on Instagram. Do these struggles make freelancing even worth it? It's my dream to be my own boss, but all of these potential stresses make a good job seem more appealing sometimes. No matter what, if you decide to work for yourself, if you decide to be a freelancer or have a business, I'm starting to shed the idea of being that I am a freelancer. because of the fact that I have my business, Blue Cyclops Design Company, and that's what all of my business goes through. But with doing that, with being your own boss, there comes a lot more responsibilities than when you're not. When you're, working for somebody, when you have a day job and everything like that. And I will be the first to tell you, not everybody is made for doing full-time freelance or working for themselves full-time. Some people are not. You have to figure out if you are, if you can do it. And the best thing to do is to try and make sure that you are set up for success. Now, for me, the biggest thing that I wanted freedom to do what I wanted. I wanted freedom to be able to go on vacations whenever I wanted. I didn't want to have to worry about sick days, or I didn't want to have to worry about, going to Creative South and having to, put in those days in order to even go. And so for me, like, that was one of the biggest things. But also, I wanted to be able to choose what I worked on. I didn't want to be told, oh, today you're going to be working on this project or that project. I wanted to be able to choose, okay, today I'm working on this retainer client for this awesome charity-based startup here in San Diego. Perfect. This day, I'm not going to work on this, big tech company in San Francisco that is against my ideology and stuff like that. And being able to decide that, be able to choose that is very important to me. And that makes it completely worth it. Not to mention, I make way more money than I made working at another company. So it really just depends. And you are going to go through some struggles. It's never an easy road. It's never going to be, sunshine and rainbows. It's always going to be rough. There is going to be good times, but there's also going to be bad times. And so you have to be able to cope with that. You have to be able to put up with those stresses. Mahmoud says on YouTube, don't worry, the light will come at the end of the tunnel. That's true. Like, when you are going through these stresses as a freelancer or as a business owner, you have to keep positive and you have to keep the right frame of mind. What do I say at the end of every one of my live streams? Stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative. And that second one, stay positive, go straight to that one moment where things are looking bad, things aren't going quite right. And so you have to be able to push yourself forward. You have to be able to have these positive moments in your career, in your freelancing life, and things like that. Hey, Rohan, thanks for tuning in. Hey, Jeffrey Beats, thanks for tuning in both on Instagram and on YouTube. But so the important thing is that, with any type of business venture, whether you're working as an illustrator, a designer, there are going to be good times and bad times. You have to stick with it. You have to push yourself. Now, if you decide to go full-time freelance, give yourself 1 to 2 years. If you can sustain that, give yourself 1 to 2 years and let that decide whether or not you want to stick with it or you want to go and work for another company. It's very important because a lot of people think that it's something where, you can just go freelance and, I can do it for, a couple months and then I'll jump into a job. Yeah, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. But not everybody can do it. Freelancing is very difficult, especially when it's full-time. It's not as difficult when you are doing it part-time, right? That's actually the best way to test things out. Everyone who wants to freelance full-time or work for themselves full-time, you should definitely freelance on the side first because you want to build up that confidence as a freelancer and build up that network. But it's very important that that when you go out on your own, you really are on your own. Yeah, you get to decide when you wake up. You get to decide when you work. You get to decide, who you work for and everything like that. But there are going to be times that are going to push you to the breaking point. I feel like every year I have maybe about 30 to 40% of the time of an entire year is stressful. Honestly, it probably is over 50%, to be honest. But it's the other, 50% or whatever of the year that makes it all worth it. So, like right now, with everything that's going on with the pandemic, everything that's going on with the economy, it is very bleak. It is very, nerve wracking. It's very stressful, especially with the fact that we are all home right now, and we can't go out. We can't go and do stuff. We can't go to restaurants. We can't go, meet people at coffee shops and things like that. All of those things are very, very stressful. And so it makes it it makes it even more difficult for us to be able to do what we want to do or to stay positive and everything. But that's okay. Like there's gonna be hard times like that. It just shows once it's all over, how we came out of it is how, like, what is going to define us moving forward. Right now, this pandemic, the fact that we're having to stay home and everything like that, all of those things are defining moments in our lives. The fact that, think about this, there hasn't been a pandemic like this in the scale of, people getting sick, death, affecting the economy and things like that since 1918 worldwide. That's over 100 years ago. 100 years ago. But that pandemic, that actually shaped how a lot of people acted, how a lot of people, came out of it and everything. What we do now, like how we come out of this, whether we're stressed out, whether we're pulling our hair out, whatever it is, that is going to define us for potentially the next 10 years, 20 years, or our entire lives moving forward. And so what we have to do now, even if we get stressed out, which, like last week, I was really stressed out. It was bad. But I knew, okay, I knew what I had to do to de-stress myself. I knew, okay, I have to take a couple days off. I have to focus on me. I can't be answering everybody on social media. I can't be, everybody's go-to guy for questions and things like that. Now, I still answer questions. I still talk to people and everything like that. But at the same time, I gave myself the space that I needed. And what happened was, the weekend's over. I had 3 days off. Today is a light day, luckily. I feel great. I feel motivated. I feel like that I will be better this week than I was last week. I know what not to do. So, for instance, this week, after about 6 o'clock, maybe push it to 7, I'm done for working for the day. No matter what. Even if a client is emailing me and asking me for stuff, I'm done. I cannot work because I need to focus on myself, And so it's something that's very important to me, especially right now, is that I keep positive and I keep pushing myself forward. And for a lot of you guys who have probably followed me for a long time, you've heard me talk about that. You've heard me talk about how I deal with my stresses, how I push, forward and everything. Excuse me, I need a quick water break. I can feel my throat getting dry. Hello, Amir. Thank you for tuning in on Instagram. So, the important thing is that being stressed out, being burnt out, having a breakdown, feeling depressed, not wanting to get up out of bed, not wanting to work, not wanting to do this or that is okay. It means that you're human. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that, other people are better than you. It means that you're human and you're going through the trials and tribulations that all people go through in some way or fashion throughout their lives. So, for those of you who are just tuning in on both Instagram and on YouTube, basically what we're talking about today in today's live stream is we're talking about stress, we're talking about burnout, and we're talking about having a breakdown, which I experienced all three of those last week. So I feel like I'm, pretty confident in, what I'm talking about here. Thank you so much, Amir. Amir says that it seems like I lost a few pounds. I don't know about that, but thank you anyway. Um, but it's very important that I talk about this on the stream. The last few weeks we've had streams where I basically just did nothing but create and share that creative process. Don't worry, they're coming back. This isn't the end of the creative live streams where I'm going through and creating stuff on Illustrator and creating stuff on, Adobe Fresco and everything like that. Those streams are still here. I just felt like because of the fact that I just went through this, that it would be very beneficial for me to go through and to talk about all this stuff with you guys. To share with you that, even though I have so many followers on Instagram or so many subs on YouTube and stuff like that, I still have the same stresses that a lot of other people out there have. I'm not a Superman. I'm not an all-star. I mean, a lot of people keep telling me that, and I tell them, don't call me that. I'm not an all-star. I'm not a superstar, whatever. But I am human, and we all go through these moments where we get stressed out, and we, get hit hard by life and everything. Something I used to always say, and my wife actually, she rolls her eyes whenever I talk about this, but life is going to hit you with a ton of bricks multiple times throughout your life. And it's what you do with those moments, with those bricks, that determine what is going to happen throughout your life. I like to think of it that, it's better to build a house out of those bricks, use those bricks, use those moments of stress, of failure, to build up yourself, to build up a house where you can keep going and where you can keep pushing yourself. I've been hit by a ton of bricks so many times throughout my, my career, throughout my life. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still pushing forward. I'm still who I am. I haven't let any of the events that have happened in my life make me a mean or hateful person. Instead, I use every one of those moments to lift myself up and to remember, I'm better for those moments. I don't have really regrets. I might say, oh, hold on, sorry about that. My dog here hears somebody. But I'm not here with any real regrets about anything. Like, I might say, oh, I regret doing this or I regret doing that. But in reality, I don't have regrets in the fashion that I don't, like, wish I could go back and change something overall. Rohan says, hey man, look after yourself first. Your health, well-being is more important to us than your live streams are. But glad you are sharing your experience. It's a valuable lesson. Thank you so much, Rohan. I really appreciate that. And it is true. Like, that's the reason why last week I didn't do my live streams. I decided to make that executive decision to focus on myself and focus on my health. Even last night, as I was preparing my bullet journal for the week and for today, I went through and I made sure... Sorry about that. My dogs are hearing people in the house. And so they're wanting to woof and things like that. But last night, like, as I was going through setting my bullet journal, which if you guys haven't done bullet journals or haven't heard of them before, definitely check them out. I'm meaning to write a blog post and produce some YouTube content about how I use a bullet journal. So be on the lookout for that. But one of the things that I did was I went through and I created a daily routine for myself. More of like a morning, day, and night routine. And it's something that so far today I've been following it pretty well. But at the same time, I know that not everything, not every single day I'm going to be able to follow that, But I know, okay, let's say I have a bad day. I can go back and start a fresh day the following day with this routine. And I can know that if I follow this routine, things will get better. Jeffrey Beach says, it's hard to be creative this digital age. People think they can get everything for cheap. I think that the secret lies in making your own product and getting large exposure. Look after yourself, Rocky. Thank you so much, Jeffrey Beats. I really appreciate that. I agree with you to an extent, but I think that, yes, people want things cheap. But at the same time, there are other people who are willing to spend the money for quality design or quality illustrations. And yes, like creating your own products, that is a great way to create residual income or passive income. Um, but I also think, for instance, for me, I plan on putting out courses this year. I plan on doing webinars and other teaching type engagements to help produce additional income for myself. But at the same time, I'm not going to stop doing freelance work or doing work for companies and startups and businesses. In fact, even if I was making double what I'm making now as a independent studio owner, I would still be doing that same work in addition to creating content like that because I do love what I do. But I think that yes, you are right that it is sometimes harder. Like those things make it difficult for a lot of people and it stresses people out when they, have to deal with things like that. I think for me, believe it or not, and this was actually an interesting part, most of my stresses usually revolve around money. This time though, when I had my little meltdown last week, it actually had nothing to do with money at all. It actually had everything to do with just like overworking myself, overtaxing myself in multiple ways. So, all right, so I'm going to open up to more questions. If anybody has any questions, both here on YouTube or here on Instagram, please feel free to ask away. I'm going to take a quick little water break, and hopefully I'll see some questions pop up, and that way we can get this a little bit more engaging, and I'm not just talking, completely out of nowhere. For those of you who are tuning in on YouTube, always remember that starting, as always, the schedule moving forward on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Behance and on Instagram Live. And then on Mondays and Fridays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube and Instagram. I always try and go live on both Instagram and one of these other channels so that I can reach as many people as possible and share with you guys what I'm creating. And don't worry, there is going to be more live streams where we are talking more about the creative process, and I'm sharing a lot about Illustrator and things like that. And so, this is just one of those moments, like maybe once a month or once every couple months, I'll jump on and talk about a specific topic. Let's see. Kate Jarina, yay, it's time for another amazing live stream. Thank you so much for that. Today we're actually not doing anything creative. We are actually talking about stress, burnout, and breakdowns. My brother here is actually working on his art final for school. He's actually in high school, and he is creative as well. In fact, later this week is his birthday. So, probably we'll do something special for him maybe on Friday on the live stream. Okay. So, and again, if no one has any questions, then we might end the live stream a little early. For those of you who are just now tuning in, though, you can actually go back and rewatch the live stream for the next 24 hours on Instagram, or you can check out the live stream on YouTube. It will be up. Just look for Rocky Rourke on YouTube, and you will find the latest live stream. And I believe I called it Stress and Breakdowns, so it's pretty easy to find. All right, awesome. Yeah, and again, thank you so much to everybody who has been popping on and who has been continuously tuning in for these live streams. I see a lot of people that are normally on, and so it's really cool to see it, especially like big shout out to Amir on Instagram, to Jeffrey Beats, and to Rohan, and of course my little brother Mark. Let's see, I see that there's 2 things that popped up on Instagram, but let me actually address a couple of questions here on YouTube first. Let's see, do you think this comes from Rohan, do you think the best way to deal with creative block is to take a break or to double down on creating? I feel if I take a break, I never go back, but find it hard to double down. So, I actually think that the best thing to do is to not try and double down. I found that every time I go and end up wasting so many hours trying to, figure out a solution, when in reality, my brain needs a mental break from whatever it is I'm trying to figure out. So, for instance, with let's say there's a branding project that I'm currently working on. Hopefully, it should be done relatively soon. And the first start of any type of branding project is trying to just figure out what that mark is. In fact, one of the things that is very stressful is just those early sketches, trying to figure out an idea, trying to figure out, okay, what ideas should I take from sketch and put them over into digital, working in Illustrator. And so, excuse me, I had a little burp there. And so, it's something where sometimes I'll hit a complete snag, or we'll be halfway through a project and then the client wants to see more exploration. The idea is not quite there yet, and that can be so stressful. And the best thing to do then is to take a step back, go for a walk, go read a book, get out of your work environment completely. Go, in a normal situation, go take a drive, go pick up some lunch, go spend time with your significant other, or go play with your dog, go for a walk with your dog, something like that. But do something that breaks you out of what you have just been doing. Sometimes I'll take a couple hours of break. Sometimes I'll take a break, then I'll go and work on something else before I come back to it. And sometimes I'll take a full 24 hours before I actually go back into it and try to, address the problem or find a solution. But I never try, now I never try and double down unless I'm on a short deadline and the project's due that day. That's the only time I ever double down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back and forth between Instagram and YouTube. Let's see. It doesn't always have to be about design because there are a bunch more important topics related to the person behind the designs. Thank you so much, Kate Jarina. I see both you and Amir asked a question. So, what do you do if you feel overloaded? And then also Amir says, how do you break a wall? So, that's basically that was my big problem last week, is I was feeling very overwhelmed, overloaded, and overworked. And the simplest thing is just take a break. And it's not just take a 30-minute break. It's not just take an hour break. Sometimes it's take a day or a weekend break. But the important thing is, though, that you don't just take a break and say, okay, I'm going to ignore everything. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to do anything. That's not going to help, because then you're just going to come right back to those same stresses and everything. What you need to do is you need to address how you feel. You need to address what problems are going through your head. What are you dealing with? Because that's very important. You need to make sure that you go through all of these things and you make sure that you address it. Because if you don't address how you're feeling, what caused it, what can you do to change it, then you're never going to get better. You're just going to stay in this infinite loop of being overworked, being overwhelmed, and everything like that. So that's where, we come back to, I write down what's going through my head, what I'm stressing with, whether it's personal, business, whatever. It could be, a client gives me bad feedback. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to go through and I'm going to write in this journal, okay, so right now the client said this, I disagree strongly, why are they doing this to me, blah, 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 blah. Then I flip the script. Instead of focusing on what I feel, instead of focusing on what I think, instead then what I do is I say, okay, where are they coming from? Why would they actually go through and say this? What could they be feeling? What could they be thinking? And that's how you have to go through and do it. Like that, I found when I do it that way, it helps out 100 times better. So I know that Kate Jarina has to leave in a second. I do see one more question that she posted, so I'll try and quickly answer that. Hopefully you can stick around for this. Did you ever have anxiety living inside of you of not making it in your passion as a designer because your family didn't support you? If not, what would you suggest, though? So I had that fear for a long time. I was so afraid that I was not going to make it as a designer, as a creative. I did not think that I was going to become like where I wasn't going to be where I am today. Let's say it that way, right? Where people are listening to me, they're watching me on both, Instagram and on YouTube and everything. I didn't think I would be what I hate saying is an influencer. I hate that word. Do not call me that. I'm not an influencer. I hate that word. It's horrible. But luckily, my mom always supported me. I had family members who they supported me, or they said they supported me, but they probably actually didn't. And so I was lucky in that aspect, though, that I had my mom, was my biggest cheerleader when it came to my creative career. And she saw that I was creative. She saw that I was working hard and everything like that. So that helped. But the important thing is, if you have this anxiety inside of you that you might not make it, you have to try harder. You have to push yourself forward. You have to talk to people. You have to work on bettering your skills, bettering what you're doing. Don't just stay the same path. If you just try and stay at the same pace with like your creative journey, you're just going to stay on that level. You're never actually going to grow. You're never going to climb a mountain. You're never going to, be discovered by someone like Adobe or something like that. You have to constantly be challenging yourself, learning new things, pushing yourself, trying to do the best or even better than you think that you can. And that's the best way I can really suggest it. Practice, of course, always helps out with that as well. Okay, so hopefully, Kate, you were able to stick around for that, and hopefully that helps out. And again, you can send me a DM on Instagram, and I will be happy to answer any and all questions that you have, or if you just need some extra advice. Okay, so let's see. Jeffrey Beat says, "I think it's a good talk. It's good to talk stress. Clients can or talk about stress. Clients can be stressful. Yes, like I said." Clients, unfortunately, can be very stressful. Sometimes you have diamonds in the rough where they are the perfect client. I, luckily, right now, have, I think, 2 perfect clients. It's scary. It's very scary. Because I'm like, okay, how are they going to stop being a perfect client? But no matter what, you will have moments. Even with a perfect client, you will have moments where they might not seem that perfect. And everything, or they might get on your nerves, or they might give you feedback, or they might stick to something that you are not necessarily thrilled about, or you don't want to do, and everything, and that's okay. You can't expect everything to go your way. You can't expect for a client to approve every single thing on the first try. So, for instance, with like this past week when I was working on my retainer, unfortunately something happened where I didn't get the feedback that I needed in time, and so instead of working on the retainer for the duration of the whole day, I ended up working on it from 3 p.m. about 3 p.m. all the way to midnight that night. And by the end of it, I was exhausted. I was stressed. I was frustrated. I was frustrated with the fact that, I wish that they could have gotten me this feedback sooner. But at the same time, like, I can go through that same exercise where I think about, okay, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling I might be feeling anger, or I might be feeling, worn out or stressed and things like that because of all this. Okay, then I can ask myself, well, what's going on with them? Why is it that they probably got me that feedback late? What are they thinking and everything? And I'd go and take a look at that. Okay, we're working on a campaign right now. Okay, this is their first campaign with an organization. Okay, they're probably wanting this campaign to be the best possible thing that it can be. Okay, that they're probably stressed. They're probably worried. They've gone back to the drawing board a couple times on some of these ideas. That validates that point that yes, they them too are stressed. They're afraid. They're nervous. And so when I see that, I see, okay, wait a minute. We're actually on the same team here. We're actually on the same level. When you think about it, we're both stressed. We're both trying to make someone else happy. We're both trying to do something that not that we haven't done before, but we're just trying to impress somebody. And so when we do that, we see, okay, you know, I can give them some slack. I can see that, okay, maybe it's something I shouldn't get upset about and everything. So that's the way that I tend to look at it. Let's see. Jeffrey Beat says, a lot of designers try to be everything to everyone. I need to start filtering my clients. I'm getting paid a lot by a bad client where I should be putting my time into finding a better client. Yes, I've actually experienced that before. I've had one of my worst ever projects and clients. I'm not going to say any names. I never say any names when I talk about this client. But they were one of my highest paid clients ever. Well, not ever. I've had clients that have surpassed them since. But in one single project. And there were warning signs. A lot of warning signs. Even to this day, I still think about it. I kick myself because I never should have taken on the project. But what ended up happening was, yes, I got paid a lot of money. Yes, there were some other things that came up too. And, yeah, I did get paid some more for other projects. But in the time that we worked together, which was over 6 months, maybe 7 months, I was so stressed out that I ended up gaining over 50 pounds from stress. I was going through the worst bat of migraines that I've gone through since I was a little kid. And I just was not happy. I was not happy at all. And I tried to push through that. I tried to show on social media that I was happy and I was doing this stuff and I was feeling great. In reality, I wasn't. I was miserable. I was stressed out. And, I was even losing hair from it. That's how stressed out this client made me. Luckily, I've got, thick hair and everything, but I was losing a lot more hair than I normally would. And finally, the moment that I finally, in a way, fired the client. I finished all the work that I needed to get done, according to what we had scheduled. I gave him an ability to comment and review it, and he never did. And I ended the project. Now, what ended up happening was, it didn't end there. He came back multiple times, and even to this day, we had talked about going through and actually redoing a couple things. And I offered, yeah, as long as you get me feedback, I'll go through and update these things for you and everything. And it's been almost a year. It'll be a year in August since he said that he would get me information. And so at this point, if he comes back, I'm going to have to turn down, helping me any further. But it's important that we figure out when we have bad clients, or when we have these clients that aren't necessarily good for us, because we don't want to go through that. We want to find clients that pay the bills, but we also want to find clients that will help push us further, that will help push our creative inspiration, push our creative skills and things like that. That's where it's really beneficial. Jeffrey Beat says, times are tough at the moment with the virus, and budgets have been cut by a lot of clients. Yes, everybody's feeling it. I feel it too. Oh crap, sorry Amir, I didn't. Let me see if I can go back up. Let's see. So Amir, when you're talking about how do you break a wall, I kind of talked about it a little bit. I've mentioned it a few times before in other streams. But probably the best way to break any type of creative block, which I'm guessing that's kind of what you're talking about there, Amir, and so just let me know if I'm correct. Whenever it comes to trying to break down that creative barrier or the creative wall that you're getting where you can't figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to get through this, or how am I going to solve this problem, is literally just to take a break. Step aside. Get some fresh eyes on it. Get other people's perspectives on it. Sometimes literally what I'll do is, if I'm working on a project and I cannot I literally cannot come up with an idea, then, oh wait, hold on, let's see. I wouldn't say creative block, more like a limitation. When you say limitation, what exactly are you referring to? Because that's a little vague there too. Now, when you say limitation, you could mean limitation in like equipment. You could mean a limitation in your skill set and everything. If it's a skill set thing, trust me, I've run into those problems too before. I've had clients that wanted, certain things. They say they wanted, when we were getting started with something, and then they come back and said, actually I want it to be this, and I'm like, unfortunately, I can't. That's not a style of illustration I'm comfortable with doing, or I don't think that this, follows your brand. If you could explain the what kind of limitation you're talking about, Amir, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. And by the way, guys, for those of you tuning in on YouTube, if you guys have been enjoying this live stream, please feel free to hit the like button. And the same thing with everybody who's tuning in on Instagram, hit that heart button. But it's okay. So skill set. So you're talking about skill set. So skill set. It just comes down to practice. Hello, Fabs83 from Barcelona. I love your work. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. When it comes to skill set, you have to practice. You have to push yourself. You have to try, new things. If it's something where, I don't know the exact situation, so I don't know exactly what it is that you're trying to do, but let's say, because I know you're a branding designer and everything. Let's say it was for some sort of logo design that somebody wants that you might not think that you can deliver on, or maybe it's a style of logo that you don't know if you're comfortable with doing. Find other pieces of inspiration that has that, and then go through and try to recreate it yourself. And don't just do it one time. One time's not going to teach you anything. First, try and recreate the first time, then a second, then a third. Each time that you create it, try and make it better. And finally, on that third try, then you need to go through and actually try to do it your way. There's been many times where I've had branding projects or illustration projects where a client wants some sort of mark or a logo type or something like that I don't know if I can deliver. Like, I'm not the best. I'm not a letterer by any means. I'm horrible when it comes to doing hand-done typography. I wish I was better. I've created a few pretty good ones, but I'm nowhere near the best. In fact, I use mostly typefaces to create a lot of my logo types. But when it comes to marks and stuff like that, I go through and let's say a great inspiration for me is actually someone else named Amir. I think he used by Grow Case here on Instagram. He's one of the forefathers. That's their studio name. I love his work. I love what he creates. Could I create it? No. I know for a fact I couldn't. But what I can do is I can sit down and I can look at like one of his logos and I can recreate it. And then I can recreate it a second time in a better fashion. And then the third time I can look at it and create my own version of that logo. Based on what I learned from the techniques that he's using and stuff like that. It's very easy to reconstruct someone's work, whether it's illustration or branding or whatever it is. It's very, very easy. It might not seem like it's easy, but it honestly is. It just takes time, effort, and energy. And if you're not willing to exert the energy and the willpower and the practice that it's needed, then you probably shouldn't take on projects like that, or you should only focus on your current skill set. Now, see, I know because I've looked at Amir's, Instagram quite a bit. I've seen a lot of your work. Your work is amazing. You do an amazing job. You understand the brand systems and responsive branding way better than a lot of other people. Way better than I did, a few years ago, and everything. So you should definitely keep that in mind. I think that no matter what, you'll be able to break through any wall that you have. So hopefully all that answers your question, Amir. I do apologize if it doesn't. If you feel like it, I didn't even touch on, what you're going through. I do apologize for that, but hopefully that helps you out. And what Jeffrey Beats said on YouTube is correct. Like right now, everybody has so many stresses. The biggest stresses right now is that, times are tough, budgets are being slashed by clients. I had, in the course of about a week or two, $40,000 in projects disappear. Some of them were projects that were, signed or about to start, or they were projects that we were in the middle of about ready to sign contracts and everything like that. And then everything got put on hold or everything got canceled. In fact, I have one project from earlier this year where everything got put on hold because everybody was scrambling, trying to, pause everything and trying to figure out, okay, how we're going to do remote, what's going to happen. And I honestly don't know if that project's ever going to pick up. That sometimes is how it works. Sometimes projects will pay deposits and yet they get paused and then they never get picked up again. Hopefully it will, because I think that would be an awesome project to work on. But we have to deal with stuff like that. We have to, go through that. We have to, push ourselves, to be responsive, to, pivot and to be on the fly when it comes to, clients and their needs and stuff like that. For instance, right now I have one main retainer client. And then I took on 2 month-by-month types of projects, meaning every month these clients come to me, they have a list of illustrations that they need or graphics that they need, and they pay me a flat fee, and I create them for them. And then the next month comes around, they need another 5 graphics, they pay me a flat rate, and it keeps going just from there. And that alone isn't going to pay the bills. But those combined, plus additional projects coming in, plus another retainer project, more than enough pays for the bills, luckily. So, another thing is freelancers are set up to weather a recession or a pandemic way better than studios or agencies. In fact, you're going to see a lot more people becoming freelancers because of all the jobs lost and everything, but you're also going to see a lot of agencies disappear and studios disappear. I talked about this, a while back, but you're going to see a lot of these people disappear because of the fact that they cannot compete with freelancers. Freelancers, we can change our prices. We can lower our prices if need be. We can take on more projects. We can do, stuff like that. We can usually get started on the project way quicker and get things done a lot quicker than an agency or studio, because agencies and studios have a large amount of overhead. They have office spaces, they have employees, they have health insurance, they have all these different things that they have to meet. And so instead of decreasing their prices, some of them actually increase their prices in hopes that landing 1 or 2 of those projects versus 4 or 5, they'll be able to pay the bills. And so freelancers were able to be more agile and more, responsive when it comes to things like this. So for instance, I had a project come through maybe about a month ago, and normally this project would have cost, I'm not going to say a figure. I would say, let's say, I'm just going to say a random number. I'm going to say, let's say the project would have cost $10,000, right? It was not $10,000. It was actually more than that. But what I can offer to that client is, they're like, okay, our budget is actually more like $5,000. I can tell them, well, tell you what we can do is we can remove a couple things from your scope. We can drop it down a bit. And if you allow me to create this project on, through live streaming, on YouTube and Behance, or posting it daily on Instagram, then I can easily, go down a little bit on price. Can you meet me up to, let's say, $6,000? For the most part, a lot of clients, they'll do that. If you tell them, oh, it was, normally this cost is $10,000, and then you offer it for $6,000, you're showing that you're willing to meet them in the middle and that you're willing to work with them. Versus an agency where they say, where they come have somebody come to you and they're like, Oh, my budget's 5,000. Oh, something like this costs 20,000. We actually can't budge on that. That's the lowest that we'll take a project like this on, and instantly that client's gonna be gone. They're never gonna come back because they're gonna instantly know, okay, they can't. I can't afford $20,000 for a project from them. So you have to be flexible, And the best thing to do is, if let's say you need, and this is again a random number, let's say you need $10,000 every 2 months to 2 or 3 months to stay afloat. All right, don't try and get a $10,000 project. Try and get five $2,000 projects. And that's more manageable. And sometimes that's a lot easier, and you can usually get those projects done relatively quickly too. The smaller the project, usually it's a smaller amount of, or smaller the budget, the smaller amount of work. The only time I say no to low budgets like that, especially during these types of times, is if it's a subject matter I don't care about or I don't want to work on, or if it's a stupid ask. And I'm literally going to use stupid because, yes, there are plenty of stupid asks. Recently, I had an inquiry come in. I think this was actually an inquiry that came in from Europe, actually, where they wanted 200 icons in a week, and their budget was $2,000. No. I laughed when I saw that. I told them, unfortunately, the budget and the timeline just don't work. This project would normally cost about anywhere between 15 to 20,000, and you'd be looking at a turnaround time of probably a month, if not 2 months, depending on how quickly you could get me feedback. Never heard from him again. Don't plan on hearing from him again. If a client comes to you with an incredible ask like that and no real expectations, you do not want to deal with them. Trust me on that. Let's see. Jeffrey Beat says designers need to adapt with the times. I agree with what you said about agencies. The time for professional freelancers is taking off. A small budget to an agency is a big one for a freelancer. Rocky, I do charity projects to balance my work, community goods that aren't big business. To go back to what you first said, if you think back, when the recession of 2008 hit, that was sorry about my dog. That was one of those moments where freelancing finally really started taking off again. And it's something where you saw a lot more freelancers coming into the market. You saw a lot of studios start to spring up after 2009, 2010. And what it was, again, the same thing that's happening right now. Budgets were going down. People couldn't pay for, big projects with big agencies. And so that becomes a big problem. But you see a lot of people, who are pushing themselves and who are like, okay, I lost my job. All right, I'm going to do this on the side. I'm going to do freelance accounting. I'm going to do freelance bookkeeping. I'm going to do freelance copywriting. I'm going to do coding, stuff like that. So you have to be able to be agile. You have to be able to do that. But you are going to see a huge amount of freelancers come into the market. Not all of them are going to be able to bring a lot of quality, or they're not going to be able to run projects on their own. So sometimes what you need to do is you need to bring those freelancers under your wing, and you can almost create your own type of pseudo agency type of deal. Sorry about that. My dog's hearing my wife out there, and so he's woofing. Okay. So I think that we're going to be done for today. We have 1 minute remaining here on Instagram, and we've been on for an hour on YouTube. Let me just say, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for today's live stream. Thanks so much for sticking around. For those of you who have, I really appreciate it. And for those of you on YouTube, again, thank you so much. Please hit that like button if you like this. And if any of you guys tuned in and you missed part of the live stream, you can check it out later today on YouTube. And you can also check out you can check out everything that happened today on Instagram for the next 24 hours. No worries, Kyle. You can definitely check it out later. It will be up for you guys to view. Thank you so much, guys, on Instagram for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Always remember to stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative. All right. I just had to end that there on Instagram because of the fact that If I didn't, it wouldn't share it. So yeah, so I really want to thank you guys so much for, you know, tuning in to all this, for listening to me, you know, talk for the last hour, you know, about stress and about my own stresses, and also allowing me to answer questions that you guys have and talk about some of the things that you guys want to talk about. I will be back tomorrow on Behance. Let me grab that schedule for you guys. I will be on Behance on Tuesday and Thursday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time. And then I will be back on YouTube on Friday at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time. As always, please remember to stay passionate, stay positive. That's very important, guys. Stay positive and stay creative. Stay safe out there. Don't overdo things. Don't push yourself too hard. Wash your hands and stay safe. All right, everybody. That's it for me. Have a great day. I'll see you later.